The low frequency is an intelligent consciousness that is part of the mind of the planet, which we will also refer to as the mind of Gaia. While on one hand we have proof of the planet's intelligence through the miracles that nature performs in order to survive even in times of crisis, on the other hand the planet also possesses a second phase, very different from the constant evolutions that nature offers us. That's the consciousness that keeps us all tied to a low vibration, which we will call low frequency. Nature and low frequency are not the same thing, but they are both part of the mind of the planet. We can compare nature to the human need to eat food in order to stay alive through nourishment, thus to the normal hunger we feel when we've gone too long without eating. The low frequency, on the other hand, is comparable to obsessive hunger, which forces us to eat even when the body doesn't truly need that nourishment. Yet it makes us feel hungry and compels us to eat more and more and more until we reach serious health issues due to obesity, and even then, it tries to convince us that we're still hungry and forces us to keep eating. This comparison is meant to help you understand the huge difference between nature and low frequency. Both are part of the planet's mind, and it's not easy to distinguish between them, just like it's not easy to tell the difference between true hunger and nervous hunger, because both cause similar symptoms, making you believe they are the same thing. Yet, one exists to keep you alive, while the other, if you listen to it, destroys your life. Nature by itself continues on its course, ensuring that humans, animals, insects, and the plant kingdom carry on with their lives, performing actions that are beneficial to the planet. So, nature pushes you to carry out work that benefits the society of your species, which in our case happens through a work contract, whereas in other species like ants, bees, etc., it occurs much more spontaneously. Each one knows what he has to do since birth. Insects dedicate their entire lives to their work and to reproduction, which is their only life mission, because they work all the time to ensure the continuation of their species. However, we are not ants, and although we could learn a lot from them, both in terms of work and society, such as the sincere collaboration among individuals to become a united group, which is increasingly rare among us humans, we must remember that we are much more evolved than insects, because we possess a higher intelligence and consciousness than they do. Of course, more than once we may have looked at someone we know and thought that a cockroach might be smarter than them. But in concrete terms, the human race cannot be compared to an animal species or to insects, since our intellectual and psychic faculties are more mature and advanced. Within the planet Earth, the human race is the most capable of evolving mentally, technologically, psychically, and spiritually. When we think of nature, what usually comes to mind are only beautiful landscapes, blooming meadows, and magnificent animals, but nature is not just that. While there are indeed paradisiacal places, no matter how beautiful they are, there are also natural areas full of venomous animals, leeches, ticks, parasites of every kind, swampy zones, deserts where you're unlikely to survive for long, and endless icy lands where life would not be as rosy and pleasant as one might think. So, nature is not just flowers and beautiful landscapes. It also contains very swampy areas with more stagnant energies. For this reason, it should not surprise you to think that Gaia's mind possesses, in addition to the instinct of nature, a consciousness that becomes the low frequency, an intelligent consciousness that binds us excessively to the low vibration. The low frequency is like the swampy area of the planet's mind, figuratively speaking. It's that part of Gaia's mind that causes you to stagnate in unconsciousness. But, as we well know, humans are capable of reclaiming a swamp and turn it into a better place. So, through the practice of becoming conscious and exiting the low frequency, it is possible to use your own faculties to maneuver the matrix and obtain benefits for yourself and for others. The low frequency has always influenced you, and there is no person or living being in the world who is born already with a mind outside of the low frequency, because that would be like thinking one could be born outside of nature. Since you were born within the planet Gaia, you have always been subject to its influences without realizing it, whether you like it or not. Just as nature does not ask your permission to enter your life, as it begins to take effect on you from the very first day you're born, with the urge to breath, hunger, or the need to have contact with other beings of your species, nature does the low frequency ask for your permission. The low frequency works continually to distract our attention from the discovery of our identity, placing 1,000 reasons before our eyes to make us forget who we are. The low frequency is not dark, But it is not our ally either, because its role is precisely to keep us asleep so that we continue to perform our ant-like labor and do not act as evolved consciences. Surely you've noticed it that there are people who want to know more about their identity and others who do not. The former often wonder if life is just this. They ask themselves whether life has a more evolved purpose, and they frequently pose the same question you've asked yourself many times. Who am I? And even if they don't yet know the answer, they keep asking questions. You also know very well that there's other people who are not at all interested in asking themselves such questions, as their idea of life is simply what they are already living. Work, come home to your family, and then work again tomorrow. For them, there is nothing more. On the contrary, according to their mentality, if you become curious about something outside of work and family, it's definitely something not good. According to them, you're only supposed to work, bring money home, support your family, and that's it. At most, if you really want to be open-minded, you're allowed to practice a sport, but only if it doesn't take too much time away from your family, otherwise that's not okay either. So you realize that some people are much more inclined to seek the truth, while others don't want to know it, even if you placed it right in front of them. This is the first difference we can recognize between those we might define as people in search of evolution and those we might define as Gaia's law. The Gaia's law are the perfect example of what the law wants for us. It demands that humans behave like ants and spend their entire lives working and building a family without having even the slightest time to stop and reflect, therefore to decide to evolve their consciousness through spiritual practice. The law wants us to believe that spirituality is a distraction from our work duties in order to keep us away from the truth, that our work commitments are actually what distract us from our spiritual evolution. In fact, the low frequency demands that humans behave like insects, but we are not Gaia's insects, we are humans, capable of evolving our psychic faculties to the point of being able to alter personal events and those of the entire planet with more positive intentions. We could take Jesus as an example. He reached the level of manipulating the matrix to the point of being able to change events and perform miracles, many of which are no longer even told to us today, although we still remember some. And yet he stepped out of the law in order to carry out positive actions for himself and for the entire planet. Of course, it's not easy to reach his level, but we're not here to compete, because that's not what he wanted to teach us. We are here to recognize that we are not work machines, but consciences that must awaken as soon as possible to remember who we really are. The low frequency is as cunning as it is hidden, because it influences us from the moment we are born, which makes it difficult to recognize it in our daily routine from one day to the next. We have spent our whole lives following its current instead of choosing a life through our own real decision. So the awareness that the low frequency exists and keeps us under control can be a hard truth to accept, but only at the beginning. After that, you will learn to recognize it and to navigate through the methods it uses to keep you low. The law uses two main methods to keep you down, distracted and far from the search for truth, which will lead you to practice a path to reach your awakening. The first method the law uses to keep you anchored to the ground is your own thought through the regulator, which we will talk about later. The second method is the use of the people around you, who are meant to distract you and waste your time so that you end up forgetting what evolutionary action you intended to pursue and instead choose to focus solely on daily chores and work-related matters that have been placed in front of you. Even though you could choose to do both, law will make you believe that you must focus solely on work, family matters, completely forgetting about what you could have done on an evolutionary level. The truth is that you can only become aware of the existence of the low frequency if you begin to practice, because it will give you proof of the truth of its presence. As long as you remain within the low frequency, you won't realize how trapped in it you are. In fact, you will likely think that, after all, you are not affected by it. However, if you start practicing, you realize just how true it actually is that it exists and how influential its presence is in your life. To give a practical example, the law mobilizes people and situations around you to distract you and prevent you from practicing meditation so that, by not practicing, you will remain low and completely subject to its will. For example, you might be used to living in a fairly quiet and peaceful home where the doorbell rings very rarely, only when mail arrives. And usually it comes at roughly the same times and doesn't bother you. But things are quite different when you're about to sit down and start practicing. Your very first meditation might even go smoothly and without any interruptions. It might. The next day, so the second day of your practice journey, the law might already intervene with some internal distractions like apathy or lack of motivation, and even though you really enjoyed the previous day's meditation, on the second day you might feel like you don't want to practice it again. But you might still manage to do it anyway and push through your apathy. Around the third or fourth day, the law will start to make itself felt more seriously. Beyond your own lack of motivation, the law will start setting its mechanisms in motion to involve other people around you, so that they will distract you and waste your time, making you forget to practice your daily meditation. Let's say, for example, that you plan to meditate around 4 p.m. All morning you've gone about your household chores or done what you needed to do, and nobody has called, messaged, or rang your doorbell. All day, no one has reached out or contacted you to do something together and take your time. So you complete all your tasks and keep your afternoon free, convinced that no one will be able to stop you from practicing. And yet, as soon as it's 4 p.m. and you're ready to sit down and begin, confident that you've done everything you needed to do and will finally have the time to meditate, your doorbell rings and it turns out to be a dear friend you haven't seen in a long time. The situation seems perfectly normal and pleasant. You let them in because it's been a while since you last saw each other. You're happy and you spend the evening chatting and laughing. So you don't ever suspect that it was the law who sent a friend to distract you from your goal of awakening. If it's not a friend, then it's that uncle who only shows up for major holidays like Christmas and Easter, but today, which is an ordinary day like any other, he suddenly appears with the excuse that he's been missing you, or that he just needed a break and decided to use his time off to come visit and spend some time together. He could have arrived half an hour earlier or half an hour later, but instead he rings your doorbell a minute before you begin your meditation, or even right in the middle of your session to distract and interrupt you, making you feel a sense of dissatisfaction and irritation from the abrupt disruption while you were trying to relax. The point is that it won't immediately occur to you that this interruption was sent by the law precisely to keep you from escaping its influence through meditation. So you will underestimate this practice, thinking it's just a, for us, overly long relaxation session and nothing more than that. And yet, if it really were so insignificant, the law wouldn't go so far as to mobilize other people to come all the way to your home with the intent of distracting you from your practice and preventing you from doing it as intended. If meditation weren't so important for your awakening, if it didn't help you break free from the influence of the low frequency certainly wouldn't go to such great lengths to stop you. And yet you don't realize it until you start practicing and notice that, one way or another, something always seems to happen to try to prevent you from meditating or to interrupt you right at the best moment. You may have spent the entire day doing everything you needed to do. You worked, took care of your family, cleaned your house, handled all your daily tasks, and no one interrupted you. Then, just as you sit down to meditate, you receive a message in chat from the very person who has never paid attention to you, and who now makes you desperately want to grab your tablet, computer, phone, and spend hours chatting with them, thinking it will be foolish to throw away this opportunity. It could be someone who hasn't reached out in weeks, months, or even years, or someone who's always ignored your messages, or who only contacts you when important events happen. Yet, the moment you sit down to meditate, they will message you with an excuse that seems far too interesting to make them wait 30 minutes, the time it will take you to enjoy a good meditation. You could choose to meditate first and then chat with them for as long as you want afterward. Instead, you will choose to chat right away and end up talking about the most meaningless nonsense in the world until it gets too late and you have to go to bed because tomorrow is a work day. In the meantime, the law will be working on your mind, pushing you to choose of your own will to waste time on that chat instead of dedicating just half an hour to your evolution and then being free to open all the chats you want afterward. So, while on one hand the law has worked around you to get others to distract you, at the same time it has worked within your mind to make you choose to accept the distraction instead of committing to your evolution. This way, it will make you think that nothing important has happened, that you did nothing wrong, because today you chatted, but tomorrow you can dedicate yourself to meditation. And yet, deep down, you already know that tomorrow you won't manage to meditate, because the law is already working on other excuses to steal your time and make it even harder for you to dedicate just half an hour to your meditation tomorrow. Until you begin to practice, you won't truly realize the existence of the low frequency and the method it uses to bring you down and hinder you. It will all remain mere theory that you will never seriously understand. But once you start practicing meditation, you will become aware of how much the law is invested in keeping you asleep, because it will immediately start creating a series of events meant to make you lose the desire to practice or to forget about it entirely. It may seem unbelievable, yet it will find 1,000 ways to make you forget what you intended to do. First of all, it will flood you with unexpected events and setbacks. For example, your best friend might suddenly feel nostalgic and ask you to spend the entire evening comforting her or keeping her company, thus making you miss your chance to meditate. Or it might be a family member who just today wants to spend more time with you, or stirs up one of their usual dramas, causing you to waste your entire day trying to resolve the problems they created. After all that, you will return home to find it's too late and you will no longer feel like meditating. If you can't be kept out of the house for long, the law will try to bring itself into your home to prevent you from practicing even when you've made a point to free up time for meditation. So, you sit down, convinced that nothing and no one will stop you. You've told your friends you're going to take a nap for an hour, so they will think not to disturb you during that time, just enough time to meditate. And yet, you will start receiving repeated phone calls from call centers or unknown numbers that, of course, today have dialed the wrong number, irritating you with endless calls and a ringtone that somehow feels louder than ever, right in the middle of your meditation. But if you had already turned off your phone to avoid being disturbed, then someone will ring your neighbor's doorbell repeatedly, even though they usually ring only once. And after realizing no one's home, they leave right away. But not today. Today they will ring that bell as if the door were supposed to open on its own, even though it's quite obvious that neighbors aren't home. It could have been a quiet, peaceful day, especially considering the time, afternoon, when everyone's resting. But the moment you sit down to meditate, a stream of cars will pass by on your street, honking and making annoying noises that they hadn't made all day, yet now they seem determined to be as loud as possible. It doesn't matter if everything was silent before and not a single sound could be heard, even from afar. The moment you sit down to meditate, the neighbor's dog will start barking and the others will join in, creating a roar that seems to herald the apocalypse. They will bark so loudly and so persistently that even if you love dogs, you will feel stressed by the sharp noise they make, disrupting your meditation. And all this commotion just to make you stop meditating, annoyed by the noise. Only when you start practicing can you truly notice the existence of the low frequency, because it activates precisely when you decide to practice in order to break free from its influence. Only at that point will you realize how important it is to break free from the low. Before, you weren't aware of its existence and didn't even pay attention to it. But as soon as you begin to meditate, you will truly notice its presence, because absurd situations will start happening, which didn't seem to occur before. Clearly, if you decide to continue with this path, you will improve more and more each day, eventually managing to meditate even when the law tries to distract you with its strategies. So don't think that it will be like this forever, otherwise it will truly be impossible to meditate. However, it must be made clear right from the start that if you're waiting for the law to give you permission to meditate, then you can immediately say goodbye to your awakening. It's you who must decide to practice, even when the law tries harder to stop you. Because if you're waiting for it to give you a break and offer you some free time to meditate, you're waiting for a miracle that, rest assured, will not happen. The law does not want you to awaken. So don't fool yourself into thinking there will ever come a day when it will let you meditate peacefully without trying to stop you the very next day. It is the enemy of awakening, so it's essential to realize it. But even more important to commit to understanding the reason why the law doesn't want you to awaken. At that point, you will be on the right path for understanding how important it is to develop your psychic abilities. For now, all you can do is meditate and notice how many situations arise precisely at the moment you choose to meditate, specifically to stop you from practicing or to distract you in the middle of your meditation so that you don't reach true well-being, even making you think that meditation isn't all that relaxing. At first, the law will seem like an enemy too clever for you, because as soon as you sit down to meditate, the dog will start barking, the neighbor will start yelling, and the cars outside will start making a racket. But you must not let yourself be brought down by these trivial tactics. The mental and physical well-being, and especially the benefits that meditation will bring to your life, will be far more rewarding than any distractions the law could throw at you to stop you from practicing. So, regardless of what distractions it puts in your way, set them aside for half an hour and sit down to meditate. Your life will change significantly.